Hello, hello, people of the internet. Ian, also the Freedom Astrologer, once again here. And this time I have a very special guest for you, Liz, the gifted astrologer, the gifted tarot reader, who I've had the honor of knowing for a while now. And we've been talking, and finally we got to the place of like, okay, let's sit down and do a very, very intriguing topic. That is called Astrology is Bullshit. So welcome, Liz, and let's dive into this, I guess.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So yeah, you wanna start?
I will say, just so you don't get in trouble, I was the one who picked this topic.
That's a good one.
Because I'm argumentative, and that's my thing. So, yeah. So I just want to say that right off the bat, so nobody comes and like claws your eyes out. But so did you want me to start with like an intro for me here? I can tell a little bit about myself.
Yeah, totally do that.
Okay, so my name is Liz. I'm over at Snow City Tarot. It's another channel here on YouTube. I'm typically a tarot pick a card reader, but I am also an astrologer. And yeah, that's me.
And maybe we start with a little bit like, why do we even want to talk about this? Because we've been kind of going back and forth. And, this is, I would say, it's a pretty big one. It's kind of like under the surface. It's sometimes in our faces, the scientists say it's bullshit. People more left brainish say it's bullshit. And then the kind of like spiritual side comes in, and spiritual people come in and, what do you mean? It's not bullshit. It's the best thing ever. There's the kind of like a fight there between these two sides.
Yeah. So I've always been somebody who kind of likes to combine these two things. I don't think that the scientific life necessarily means that you have to dismiss things that are unscientific, I guess you mean. Like it seems less scientific to take the unknown and say it's bullshit because maybe we don't have the right means to measure it. And just in my experience, I have such like a great experience with astrology. So when I want to, share it with other people, naturally I'm met with some resistance, depending on the audience. And the thing is, though, I've noticed that the arguments people have against it are mostly based on like logical fallacy. Huge issues with the studies that have been done are like, oh, it's not even science, because some of the stuff that I've seen here are just the least informed scientific or academic studies of astrology I've ever seen. I will make an example here. Nice. The first one was the first one I saw that kind of made my blood boil, was in 2007. University of Manchester, Dr. David Voess did a study on the effects of quote unquote star signs. On whether or not people would get married and stay married. And when I looked at this, naturally, they basically wasted a lot of their time collecting sun sign data and then coming up with, wow, I guess there's no correlation. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, that must be it. You looked for Vogue astrology and you got what you looked for. The next one I saw, which was the most recent one, was in 2020. An investigation done by Minnesota University proudly stated in their publication their knowledge on astrology came from Alexa.com, where they asked for the 500 most popular websites on Google under astrology. And I'm like, how is this science? This isn't science. This is nothing. So like, that's my big thing, is like, can we please have a discussion about how unscientific these scientific studies are about this? Like, so that's my big issue with it.
That's crazy, actually. I'm really glad you brought the actual kind of like scientific research, because I haven't even, let's say, wanted to get my blood boiling so much that, that I go into these matters. But that seems like a very kind of like shallow, approach to that, what we call this deep science of astrology. And just going by the sun signs, guys, you can get some things, you can get some indications of who you are and what you maybe can do in material, practical career life. But to do a study on relationships, I mean, at least, at the very least, you need to start with the ascendant sign for me. So
right?
yeah, it's not the best.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, the thing that really bothers me about this is that it seems like most of what modern day academics are coming up with to argue about astrology is whether or not it's scientific, is the first thing, is just to argue whether or not it should even be justified looking into. And I feel like a lot of people that do look into it get a lot of crap for it. And I think that's kind of the problem, is there's this, this is why it's like the least scientific thing you could possibly do is to kind of like apply this social bullshit to it, where you have to shame another academic or scientist who wants to look into this stuff by saying like, I can't believe you're even giving it the time of day. You know, like it's just there's so much wrong with that. And the problem is, though, they have all these studies that they're doing, and they're doing it without us. They're doing it with Alexa.com and Google, but they're not sitting down with Richard Tarnas and having him talk to them about it. You know, I'd like to see that. Like, if I'm going to do a research on hearts and I don't study hearts, am I going to just do it without a cardiologist? No, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, you go to the leading ones, or ones who know it deeply and have dedicated their lives into it and have put a lot of hours, a lot of years into it. Because I think this is one of the biggest things that is actually happening is the people who are judging it from afar. Even, you know, I have one scientist as well who's kind of getting my blood boiling, is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, that's the name. I think most people know him. And he's very, very anti-astrology and constantly like bullying it. But like, I was thinking about this because when we started to prepare for this, I was like, okay, so how much has he actually, you know, put his time and efforts into researching and really looking into it? Instead, like maybe, for example, he looked at these studies because they're scientific, and then he was like, oh yeah, there's no correlation. But, you know, but the point I'm making is the people usually judging it aren't the ones really deeply ingrained in this science and making these observations and like even going towards these observations that, you know, societies of humans have been doing for tens of thousands of years that we know of, and maybe even more, you know, we don't even know how long.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is there's a lack of respect for it where there should be respect. Not necessarily, you don't have to respect it as a science. You don't have to respect it as a prediction method, but you should respect the human history behind it, because there are many thousands and thousands of years like of this, you know, ingrained in us. Our speech is littered with astrological references. Our days of the week are astrological references. It's everywhere. It's ingrained in us like our DNA. You know, it's not. There needs to be respect for what it is anthropologically, I would say. Now, with that said, like, that's why I think it's also rather insulting. Some of these things are simply here, not necessarily to prove or disprove astrology, but to almost in a way look down on people who still follow it. And there's a significant portion of people who think there's something to it. Now, whether you think that's folk science or whatever, that's fine. But that's the thing, is science is for us. Science is for humans, you know, and, you know, you can, instead of studying whether or not we're all a bunch of ignoramuses, instead of studying that, study why it is that we, you know, see this sort of stuff. Why is it that synchronicities we're able to track them the way we are? It's because it's divination, you know? So they're not even, by studying astrology, they're not even able to touch the surface of it, because astrology is divination. And I think it's really important for us to kind of see it for what it is, which is a tool. Do you judge the accuracy of all of what's the meteorology, of all meteorology based on one weather vane? No, you don't. So like, that's the ridiculous part of it, is that, you know, it's not, it's good to see the weather vane for what it is. It tells you what direction it is and the air is coming from. But when it comes to astrology, it's the same thing. It gives us a little bit of insight that, I mean, it's a lot of insight, but it pieces other things of life and just being alive and being a human. It pieces it all together. So, I mean, that's the thing is when they say like astrology isn't accurate, it's 100%, it's not 100% predictable. It's not 100% accurate. It's a significant part of it that is. But it also, goes in line with other sciences like nature and nurture and psychology and all these other things. So it seems ridiculous, in my opinion, to be able to just try to, measure it like that, I guess.
I think it totally hit one of the major points I have with this kind of like judgment towards it is, 100% accuracy. There's nothing in our reality that has 100% accuracy. Even when you think about doctors, people who are very respected in human society, even doctors make mistakes in their diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And nobody kind of says, the medical industry is bullshit or medical industry is bad. Everybody still understands the kind of the percentage that there is where the doctor can actually make a mistake. But when we're looking at something like that's considered right now as a pseudoscience, it has to have 100% accuracy. Otherwise, it's bullshit, and we're not looking at actual data. Of we can bring in the markets here, financial markets. I know people really literally who predict them very, very accurately, not 100%, but very, very accurately. And they're using astrology and they're using statistical analysis as well, data analysis. But they're putting these two together and they're getting good results. So to say 100% or it's bullshit, I don't think that flies. In any industry, it doesn't fly actually.
Yeah, exactly, and I agree with you 100%. It's like the definition for astrology is tracking omens, basically tracking omens, and you think, oh, omens, so then we're talking about like ancient omens, but what it is like it's not just that. It's anything can be an omen though. You can collect points of data anywhere, and that can be an omen to tell you about something in the future. Exactly like we do with financial, we read graphs, we look at the past history, and then we make a decision about what will happen next. And it's either wrong or right. If you're reading an MRI and you've done blood work and you're looking all those things together and you're like, okay, I'm seeing that there's maybe like an 80% chance that this tumor will shrink or something, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes it grows and people pass. And there's always going to be a margin of error in anything that we do. So I totally agree with you when it comes to that. Like, it doesn't have to be 100%, but for some reason, when we're trying to defend ourselves, defend our practice, it has to be 100%. And so, if you wonder, like, people will probably say, well, they're doing all these studies. Why isn't any astrologer just coming out and doing it or willingly, offering? You'll do it. Yeah.
I actually wanted to bring, because I'm actually right now behind the scenes. It's a tiny bit of a secret, but it's not actually a secret because I posted it on a very public forum online. I've taken 20 people and I'm doing a sleep study through astrology. So I've gotten results. This is, before I started the study, I've gotten results to help people sleep better through astrology, through kind of giving advice through astrology, but I didn't have enough data. So what did I do? I was like, okay, so I want to actually make astrology much more solid in the eyes of more left brain people and more mainstream. So I literally went and said, hey, I'm taking a bunch of people. I'm doing this for free. First and foremost, do you want to join and, kind of get help for yourself and actually kind of like almost help prove astrology right as well, or find help through astrology. So yeah, that study most likely will be out in a couple of months, hopefully. Maybe in 6 months. Let's keep it at that. Hopefully.
Wow, I'm excited. I want to see that. That sounds awesome. I'm glad, and like I'm glad that someone is out there trying to do that. I myself have been trying to do like a little few things on the side where there have been some studies fairly recently and like a ways back. I wish I had my notes on this. I didn't think I'd bring it up, but there's a study based on types of personalities based on season of birth. Mm-hmm. And this is coming from a non-astrological perspective. The people have already done the research. They've done the all that sort of stuff. And I've just kind of been collecting information and kind of piecing things together to see. And it was all based on this type of scaling personality type. I think it's TCI, character inventory. I can't remember what the T stands for. Shoot. It's been a while. But when I was doing that, I had noticed that there were correlations to certain personality traits based on people born in the spring and summer. And that makes a ton of sense when you think about it, because the reason why we have astrological signs is based on the seasons. So there's no reason why there isn't a physical correlation here on Earth with the seasons as the sun travels through the sky during the year. So like, for instance, and it could be a nature nurture thing. It could have to do with neurotransmitters, but either way, I do think that there's a physical correlation with that. I mean, when you think about it, like if you're a baby and you're an Aries, and you're born in spring, and you see everybody around you, and the day you were born, everyone around you is acting a certain way, getting ready getting ready to plant seeds, getting up and moving around, getting out of the winter seasons. What's that going to do to the kid? As a baby, you're seeing everybody moving this. Maybe you're going to be proactive and want to act like that when you start to grow as a person. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. So I think that's one of the things I don't hear a lot of people talk about either is like, certain seasons will make us a certain way. Like if you're born in the winter and everybody's very depressed and sluggish and tired and you're not getting any vitamin D, even as a baby, that could affect your personality, I would say. So, and then they were also seeing correlations with stress on the mother during pregnancy, stress on the mother during pregnancy based on, incidents surrounding the birth or just like light, getting enough light. All these things can affect a person's personality, they're finding. So anyway, I'm rambling.
I'm very glad that you're bringing this up because, that can even go, I'm taking it, I would say, in a psychological way. I'm a little bit taking it further because I'm seeing very, very much correlation between, you mentioned Aries and the kid being like, let's say, more active in the world and then absorbing that environment in, because everybody else during spring is most likely, let's start doing things. And I'm seeing there's also the fact that usually even when that happens, the person has some sort of role model there in the family as well, who really kind of lives the Aries sign or exudes the Aries energy, meaning they're an entrepreneur, they're doing something very active, sports, fitness, something like that. They're giving that child a lot of that energy. And why I wanted to bring this up, because we don't have so much data there in those areas, and we need to bring it, and we need to, if you're an astrologer listening to this, I would say like the more data you have, like official data, the better it is to kind of speak about this and even, feel secure in yourself about like talking about this in a very, very, in those left brain mainstream areas. This is what I want to say, because then you can always take out the card of like, I did this. This is how it went. This is the numbers. These are real people I did this with. Here you go.
Yeah.
Play their game,
Yeah, exactly. Right now we've got, what do we have? Gauquelin, the Gauquelin studies, which had great data that they got from them. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I think it's gauquelin or Gauquelin. I can't remember. He did the Mars study. But yeah, he had some excellent data that I think more people should go back into and start looking at again. However, people are afraid of that though, because Gauquelin found a lot of things that did validate astrology, but at the same time, he had some things that he was not able to explain. So people kind of tend to be a little bit resistant to going there because it's almost like they're afraid to do the work themselves.
I mean, it is a lot of work. I need to check that out. Gauquelin, you said?
Yeah, GAUQULIN. I apologize if I've butchered that. But yeah, gauquelin. I can try to, I'll Google the name with the autocorrect on Google and send it to you. But yeah, he studied personality, not personality types, but his first study was on Saturn in relationship to like where it was located in the sky. And he found that scientists and physicians all had, there was a strong correlation to scientists and physicians having Saturn above the horizon line. So that was one thing that he had noticed. And so he doesn't use signs. He did split the wheel up into the decans, right? Like 30 something decans. And that's the only way that's all he added as far as like detail goes. Like, so he didn't do aspects or anything like that. It was very bare bones. But he did also see a correlation in successful athletes and Mars and the placement of Mars as well. And I think he did these two studies separately. So you might have to look those two up. Unfortunately, I don't have any more detail with that on top of my head. But yeah, those were two really great examples of evidence that was pretty significant. And it wasn't like just some scatterbrained hair, person like, picture the Charlie Day with the maps all over the boards, like Pepe Sylvia. Like, yeah, it's not that, but it's great. And I think it's worth looking into. Of course, that was done a long time ago in like the 60s, and he passed away, I think, in the 90s. His last, I think his last book was in 91. So it's time for us to look into that again, I would say.
So guys, we need to step it up. If the proper studies were done such a long time, I'm definitely looking that up. I want to really look into what he did. Sounds super interesting. And Mars, obviously, I mean that's. I saw a small thing an astrologer did about it as well with, they associated cardinal signs, more action-oriented signs and Mars placements, and again, sports people. So they found a correlation, actually. So that's a good one. Great stuff. Do you have more of these or?
Let me see here.
Because I have one thing I definitely want to touch upon this for the people out there. Maybe I just give that right now. So, guys, if you're let's say you're watching this and you're in a place of I don't know, maybe there's something there in astrology and it's kind of like I don't know, something makes sense and others don't. So what I kind of challenge you to do is actually go type in Google moon calendar. So usually it brings up a page, astroseek.com, with the moon calendar. So you can see their moon through different signs. Now, the moon spends on average like 2.5 days in a sign. So that's enough time to see some differences in a very short period of time in people. So what I want you to do next is, if you see the sign Taurus or Leo or Aries or whatever it is, go look up very simple explanations. I have one article on my website as well that very easily describes these moon cycles and how they affect actually us humans. What I want you to do is just follow it for a month, maybe 2 months, but usually a month is enough to kind of understand how the moon influences us all on this earthly plane, because the moon is our emotions and feelings. And this is a very emotional, feeling oriented reality we are in. And you're going to see correlations immediately in the signs, the descriptions of the signs, and how people behave in your office, in your work, in your home, family, the spouse. You're going to see it immediately. I promise you that. Go on and do it and prove to yourself that astrology actually works.
Especially take notes for those of you in customer service or for full. I just give you a spit take. Customer service. It's true though. Everybody, in every customer service job I've ever worked, it'd always be like, good God, is it a full moon today? Like, yeah, it seemed like we're, it's like a folk thing, but there's something true to it. My mother was as a midwife, and she said there was an increase. She noticed an increase in women going into labor during full moons. So like, there is something to it. It's definitely not just the moon. Definitely doesn't just hang around and exert gravitational force on us with the earth and not affect us in any way. Like it's not possible. I think recently they found that Venus, actually the heat of Venus affects us here on Earth, and Jupiter's gravitational pull affects us here on Earth, especially by keeping all those asteroids for us, to keeping them from slamming into us, which is nice. But yeah, exactly. Like what you were saying, when it comes to the moon, I have noticed a lot of things happening surrounding the moon. It is the easiest, quickest way to start to see these things in action. And so for those of you that are not familiar with me, I'm a diviner. So I like astrology, and I like to divine through any means. Actually, I use charms, I use cards, I use all these sorts of things. I try to walk down the street and divine from just items hanging out. Like I ask a question, and then whatever I'm drawn to, I use that to divine as well. So when it comes to the moon, though, like I'll pull up people's charts. And I usually ask for their birthday because I want to make sure that they're, over 18 when I'm reading their cards. But I'll pull up their charts sometimes when I really feel called to it. And I'll notice every time that I'm doing a really good reading where it really resonates with them. And I can tell you it does because they'll say so. I'll notice every time that happens, the moon is on their north node, and I'm the moon. I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, look, there's me. I'm the moon. Because it shows that those people are being like drawn by this moon, and this moon's giving them guidance. And it only happens like a small window out of the month. And like, so really synchronistically, what are the odds that the moon would be on this node, that it would happen the day that I was recording their video or their audio, they're coming to me for the question that they're having, and that it's going to resonate. There's like 4 or 5 different things that have to align and intermesh for that to make sense. And this happens so frequently. I can't even tell you how many times it happens. Now I will notice that if I kind of have a reading that's sort of like, it's not there, the moon isn't there, and the person kind of disappears forever. But the ones that really hit home and it really resonates with them, they'll come back and they'll be like, oh my God, you're totally right. My life has changed. I think everything's great now. Like I have a path, a direction, which is north node stuff. Having a path and having a direction is north node stuff. It's great. So that's one big whopper that I've noticed every single time. And usually when I'm reading, I can tell when that is going to be like a oomph, like, yeah, this is probably going to click for them. I'll check the chart. There it is, moon on the north node. So that's a really good indicator. And I think if anybody else out there likes to read, collect birthdays, tell them so you want to know that they're over 18. That's what I do. But yes, and start collecting data. So what else did I have here? I think I also had something else about the moon.
I think what you said there's so many good things. I wanted to say again, guys, collect the data if you can. If you're already kind of doing it, if you're making it, like Liz said, collect the data. She literally has the data now. She knows, if you really want to, you can start using it a little bit there, maybe offering readings, from a perspective of, okay, I'll check your chart, and if you have the node, I will do the reading today. That's just like a little bit of a joke, but like, get the data. It will help you see correlations between the movements of the planets, and actually the validity of the movements and how it affects us here on Earth.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think if I had anything else about the moon. But yeah, no, I had a bunch of correlations, but that one was pretty significant. Another correlation though that I had, then this one was frustrating as all get out. So I got slammed with all sorts of transits back in 2020, right? And this one was really interesting. And for those of you that are not familiar with me, if you haven't been to my channel, I am a triple Libra. I'm a sun, I'm a moon, I'm a rising, and they're all conjunct. It's a disgusting mess. but it's all at 28 aneretic degrees too, 27 to 28 degrees. And they all got hit by that Capricorn mafia, back in 2020, 21. And so I actually needed surgery around that time. And Saturn was there making sure that that stuff was going to be as difficult as possible. And the thing that I mentioned was with Mars, right? Or thing that I noticed was with Mars, and that it actually, so when you get a surgery planned in the United States, at least, you don't have a choice on when that's going to be, which is, you can simply say, I'll take it or I won't take it. So for 3 surgeries in a row, I was given, or 3 surgery dates in a row, they gave me the first one. And that was during the time frame when Mars was squaring my sun, my moon, and my rising. So this was a square from Mars. Very not great time to get a surgery. And so thankfully, we got hit with a certain catastrophic event that I'm not supposed to mention because of the algorithm. What should we call it? The Backstreet Boys reunion tour is what other people are calling it. Yeah, it was the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Was hitting all of the world, and it was bad. So my surgery was canceled. Okay, we'll just say that. So I'm like, all right, it's canceled. I'm glad that didn't happen because that looked like it was going to be bad news. So the second time they come back and they schedule a new date, and I'm like, okay, here it goes. This should be good. And it was during Mars retrograde, and it was opposite my sun, my moon, and my rising on my descendant smack dab at like 0 degrees. And I was like, all right. I'm like, I don't think I want that one either. It was during that awful time frame when Mars wouldn't get the hell out of Aries. So I was like, all right, no, I'll turn that one down. So the third time at this point, we had moved into Aquarius. Saturn said goodbye to my big 3, and he moved into Aquarius. And what was interesting there was that now it was scheduled, and Mars, which I remind you, the reason why Mars is important here is because Mars rules surgeries, surgeons, slicing techniques, dicing techniques, sharp objects, exactly. And this time it was trining my Mars, my natal Mars. So it was a trine to my natal Mars, and it was still aspecting, though, my first house, which is interesting because, yes, I also got Mars in Libra too. So yeah, that was a really, really big indicator of because I could not control what days they were picking to get that. I couldn't schedule it with them. Like, I like Thursday better. No, they would be like, no, surgeon's here on this day at this hour. You take it or leave it, or we'll talk to you in 6 months. And that's how it happened. So for us, for me, that was a really big indicator that maybe bad surgeries are not necessarily indicated by Mars, but Mars simply indicates surgeries, because that was the one thing that I could say, because I can't say whether they would have gone well or not, but I can tell you that those were the days when surgery was indicated. And I was like, okay, that explains some of that. So that was one of the big ones I've had. I don't know if you have anything similar that you'd like to add.
Oh my God. I mean, I have so many of these stories. I don't even know where to start. Literally, I don't even know where to start. Hooey. Oh my God. I had a really big one actually this year now. What are we in 2022, 2021, end of 2021. I had a really difficult transit by Saturn to everything Saturn was squaring my sun and my Mercury. Then Uranus also started squaring my sun and my Mercury, both all at the same time. I literally had to have dental surgery in a month. I got the Backstreet Boys reunion concert. I got it into my system, and I had to get antibiotics. And I was again sick for a month. And remember, guys, Sun is your life force as well. So when Saturn is aspecting it in a really difficult way, and again Uranus bringing in some nasty stuff, well, not always nasty stuff, but difficult energies, it can literally mean you can't almost work, or you have to rest. You have to, rest is I think the best word that I had to do, and I couldn't really do anything at all. And Saturn can do it in a hard aspect to the Sun. Just very recent and very, very hard one that I had to go through. And I was like, God. And I was looking at the transits. I was like, okay, so, not loving this, and it hit me even harder than I expected, unfortunately.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I also got the Backstreet Boys reunion tour too. But I got that actually, it was funny because I got it before it was like a big deal. I can only tell you that I got it only because right afterwards I had messed up. My sense of smell was so messed up. I couldn't eat like anything because everything smelled like ammonia. Like it just altered my sense of smell for like a couple months. And it was awful. But I got that in January 28th, 2020, 2020. Yeah. So it was a little bit early, but, my astrologer that I had a personal astrologer made that prediction. And, at the time, she made it probably in August of 2019 or something like that. And, she just goes, beware of, just keep an eye out for flu and, respiratory lung disease. She couldn't tell me what it was or how severe it would be, except I looked at my chart asked after the fact, and I had aspects of, indicating how that would kind of be the catalyst for a really nasty, like 2 years after that, because I mean, it wasn't a severe case. And thankfully I lived through it, especially since I have immune issues. And it was, first of all, I'll just say it was Saturn square Sun.
Yeah.
So Saturn square Sun had triggered that for me. And then, so that's, again, we can say that's two people at least who've had the same situation. I also noticed that I got progressions with Moon and Neptune. I think Mars, Moon, and Neptune were involved as well, which Neptune was kind of showing me the signification for mucosal disease or like fluid disease, stuff like that. And I thought that was a really, really interesting thing. But the fact that Chiron was on my North Node when I got that, I feel gave it lasting effects that went on to the next year, because and it was still present with the rest of I was going to say Saturn transits. There we go. That went after that, because I noticed that as I was continuing on, they were saying that a long lasting symptom of the Backstreet Boys is deep depression.
Oh my God.
It's depression. And I was like, yeah, that totally is happening. Cause like right after I recovered from that, it took a long time. When I recovered though, I was like dissociating from reality, and it may have been the scenario that we were in, but the fact that the, science does add up to that being one of the long lasting symptoms, it made sense to me. And the fact that Saturn has still been aspecting my Mercury now and my Pluto and, all that stuff. And it's so that sort of indicates, it makes you wonder, especially when you see it like that, where you're like, was this planned? Has this been programmed, And then suddenly we get into theoretical physics where people are making asking big questions like, are we in a simulation? And that's a scientific question. Astrology, though? No, not scientific. Are we in God's video game? Yes, that's fine. But to be fair, though, I'll let the theoretical physicists off the hook there, because they get a lot of crap. People don't really like to give them the validation of their science that they deserve, because they ask big, abstract, weird questions, and they can do the science to find it. So I don't know. Maybe that's the thing, is we should get some theoretical physicists to work with us to try to find the why synchronicity exists, because that's at the heart of it. That's what divination is. It's the tracking, reading of synchronicities and signs, and that's the big question.
I really love that you bring that up. I personally think that should be the next step. That should happen. Literally, these areas should start to melt into one another and kind of like learn from each other, and then like do even better science, in my opinion. And I think that's when the really big questions start to be properly answered, when these two realities, two worlds finally start to have a common ground or common language.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, by trying to question astrology itself, it's like, again, it's like trying to it's like you got a beef with baking, but you're gonna go and yell at the pans, like or in a way my father used to say is the whole forest is on fire and you're pissing on the matches. It's like if the focus is wrong. It's the wrong questions for the wrong things. And I think that's the biggest thing is us as astrologers, we can pose the questions, because we know how it works better than most people, but we're not, we're not, that's the big thing too, is people think that we are not scientific, but we do not deny empirical evidence. No. Like we know Mercury's not really going backwards. Like, what would have to happen for that?
Although I think this is still kind of misconception in the astrological community. I think a lot of astrologers think it goes backwards. It doesn't. It just seems like it goes backwards.
Yeah.
It's because Mercury is very close to us, guys.
Yes. Not to make anybody feel bad if they did think that Mercury goes backwards. I mean, it's not. Yeah.
I used to think that for some reason. I gotta ease if it made you feel bad. I kind of when you get into astrology, you're gonna oh my god, everything is exploding, and you don't really go at first to start going deep and starting to see what is actually happening. So I had to really go and kind of look at astronomy and learn and what is actually happening during. I had to go scientific on these matters to understand what is actually going on there.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, guys. Don't judge me.
So that was one of the other things that I wanted to know is you said that you had gone from a scientific mindset to well, it's not scientific. You can still be scientific and believe in things that you cannot prove. That's very scientific, actually. Just you can be curious about them, and even if you don't understand them.
So yeah, I'll give you this. I think this is a really good story for left brainers or more like only left brain and not right brain kind of balancing. Because I was very left brain, only logic, brought up in a family of scientists. Literally all my grandparents were scientists, 4 of them scientists, one of them still is a scientist. So I had all that scientific, like how we do things in a scientific way kind of ingrained into me. So I was very logical. And I really, when I was looking at, astrological, in tabloids, in magazines, it was kind of like, it didn't make sense because in my, smart and logical mind, I could see that, you can say this about anything or anyone, these short snippets there. And I had to go through a really, really hard spiritual awakening. To even open up my kind of right brain spiritual side. And when that happened, I started then, like I started asking these questions, like Liz said, asking questions like what is that, going around and asking these big questions. And I asked a big question because I was in a relationship. I was in a romantic relationship at that time. And every 2 weeks, so an argument happened between us that I was like, whoa, what the hell? Where did this come from? I was asking what is happening here? Give me some answers, the universe or whatever, whoever you prefer. And literally I saw a video of a monthly prediction where the moon cycle was kind of talked about. One of my favorite teachers was doing that, Lada Duncheva. Go check her out as well. I'm sending all that love to her as well. But what I started seeing in that video was she started talking to me about, or to everybody, about moon cycles and how emotions and feelings are associated with this, and how during new moons there's let's say a more intense moment in our emotional lives, and during full moons there's a more intense moment. And I started I only took that And I was like, mind blown, and I started observing, in my relationship, what was happening. And sure enough, every new moon, every full moon, like there's again an argument, emotions erupt, emotions comes to the surface, like during full moons, very often new moons as well. So for me, that was enough for my scientific and now a little bit spiritual kind of mind to know that, okay, so there's something here. And I just went ballistic after that, just starting doing experiments. And one experiment I can also give you guys is pick an astrologer that you enjoy, you like. Don't look at the monthly prediction yet. Live that month and then go back and listen to that prediction. Did you do the things? Were the themes that they mentioned prevalent in your life during the month? If yes, again, a scientific proof for you to understand that there is something here, and then you can go and peel off the layers and go deeper and deeper and deeper.
So I guess I'm curious, let's see, you're a Libra rising, right? Mm-hmm. So the moon would have been ruling your 11th, 10th house. It's my chart too. I forgot what my 10th house is. So 10th house. So I wonder, did you notice that the moon, when it was doing its rounds during the month, if that was the area that seemed, if somehow that was being affected, or in your partner's chart, was that being affected? Why do you suspect the moon was affecting that?
At that time, I wasn't even looking at charts yet. I was literally, the only thing I was doing, I was following the predictions, the online YouTube predictions. I was so, beginner. And I was starting to just make correlations, because every full moon, eruption, every new moon, another fight, again and again and again. And that was kind of like literally, okay, so there's something there. No aspects, no nothing. Very simple, wow. Just moon, moon moving through its cycle. So, and then that was enough for me to really just go into it very, very deeply.
Yeah. I like that though. I like simple is more. And that's what that gauquelin study, he really simplified stuff. Yeah. And I think that it's important. Less is more. Less is more. Just focus on one thing and then just track it around the chart and see what's going on with that. I think that's also less, especially because people will read charts. They're probably thinking, we're doing research all the time. I'm always looking up this or that from past time, this and then, but really though, we do get overwhelmed when we look at that stuff, because then we're like, oh my God. And then Aunt Sally died around this time. And then then we get distracted. So it's really important to try to isolate that. And I really like that you want to use the moon. I don't know why I've never thought of just tracking the moon specifically. It makes sense though, because it moves so quickly and you can get instant results, Exactly. Yeah. So I like that a lot actually. And I'll probably start doing that. And by the way, if you guys, junior astrologers, if you do not have an entire bookshelf of journals from day to day things, you're doing it wrong. You got to keep a journal. Diviners, so people who don't follow astrology, if you're here and you're one of my tarot people, get a notebook, write every day. I'm just going to get a ruler and start virtually smacking wrists.
But that's good. That's a really important one. Very, very,
it's
very
true.
Important one.
Yes. And not only that, it's good for you. It's good for your emotional health to track and journal and things like that. But it's also, you're not going to remember all this stuff, 5 years from now, and it's going to come back and you're like, I wish I remembered the date that happened. And you'll really miss out if you don't record your days. It doesn't have to be a big journal either. You can just do a few, just a few notes. Just make sure that you have the date and the times, if anything. But yeah, so that's a really great idea, and I'm going to start doing that. And I'm going to actually maybe post about this on my Instagram to keep up with this. So you'll have to hold me to it though. You have to check in with me. I don't see you doing your work, Liz.
I really recommend it, guys, because I want to just maybe say something about the moon, because the moon is such a huge, important part in our emotional lives, in our daily lives. It represents so much. And if you manage to understand a tiny bit about your own moon sign, as well as the other person's moon sign, what they need emotionally, what you need emotionally. That's a really big game changer. If you can implement at least like 50%, maybe a little bit even less percent of that into your daily lives, of what you emotionally need through the moon sign, it will help you tremendously to feel more happy, feel more secure. I would recommend tremendously to look at your moon sign.
Yep. Yep. So I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've got anything else to add.
I think we've gone, pretty well. We brought in science, we brought in spirituality, we brought in some predictions, we brought in some past events, surgery. We got the Backstreet Boys, both. Guys, I'm really glad we got to finally do this with Liz. Please let us know in the comments what you think about this type of expression. And did you got anything from it? Did you enjoy? Did it make your brain go boom or boom? What happened for you? And if you want to get a reading with Liz, there will be links in the description below. There will be links for if you want to work with me as well. Thank you very much from me. I don't know, Liz, do you have any parting words?
No, thank you for having me. It was I really enjoyed this. I had a good time.
Thank you very much for coming, and hopefully we'll get to do this more. And guys, let us know if you want us to cover some subjects. Do you want us to do a volume 2 of Astrology is Bullshit or something? And we'll see. I think we can do it. Thank you very much. Out for now, and see you again soon in the next video.